What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Bianconeri zone for a new show. I guess, or like it's not new, but Nino has been on the channel. I think 2 3 times already. But we're doing something different. No live this time. With him, but like a real discussion without the chat messing up our talking points. So we're gonna talk about the Douglas Luiz thing happened. Everybody saw what he had to say, which is weird because it happened days ago and it only popped up now. But that's what we're gonna talk about. But also the other players, like who signed these players, why are they flopping, and who is actually really to blame in all of this. But first off, welcome back to the channel. How are you? How are you doing?
Thank you, man. I'm doing okay, glad to be back. Glad to be talking about the disaster that's going on with our team, and hopefully it switches up soon.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope. You put like hope. I don't think anyone knows, even though we have another show planned where we are gonna try to guess when it will get better and how it will get better. But that's a topic, for a different video. This one is about, well, we had an unusual summer last summer. And January we signed about 16 players, loanies, signed permanent deals, whatever, about 16 new players. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of them, almost all of them, are flopping. It's a fact. It's not overreacting. If I need to ask you the question, who you think who do you think has not flopped 100%, and who are you still on the fence about, where it's like, nah, not so sure?
That's a good question. The first person that pops into my mind is Taram. I don't think he was a flop completely. He's been putting on solid performances recently. It took him some time to warm up and get into the stride, but he's going to be one of our midfielders for I hope a while because I like the way he plays. He has a Juventus legacy. Um, I would say Kalulu has not completely flopped as well. Um, Bad moments for sure, but for the price that we paid for him, I think it it was a good deal, and I think brings a lot to the table for especially now when we're lacking Gatti and Kelly now and all those players. Not that Kelly was like an added benefit, but um, I think those two are the main ones that jump out to me. Um, Otherwise, I think Cope Miners flop, Douglas Luiz big flop, um, Kelly he's getting better, but it's just you can't say that he's supposed to start for Juventus. That's just those words you can't get me to say out of my mouth. So I'd say for now, Turam and Kalulu, I would say, and Di Gregorio. I forgot about Di Gregorio and Di Gregorio. Those three, I don't think really flopped. I think they're kind of a product of the rest of the team because the rest of the team can make you look bad or make you look worse or better, for a lack of better terms.
I agree with that last part, definitely. Like when you talk about players, when you sign a lot of players and you have this massive of a change, if the team is not doing well, like you are sitting there with a lot of players, a lot of new players. So it's the chances of it not really hitting off from the get-go were very high, and we knew that at the start of the season. But I don't think anyone is expecting this. Like you said, I think Turam, Di Gregorio. I also agree with Kalulu. I was expecting much worse. I'm not gonna lie. Other than that, it's all over the place. Like literally all over the place. From playing a lot, playing bad, to playing absolutely nothing, to playing a little, to be having a good game, 2 3 bad games in a row, pop again. Like it's very inconsistent. And well, the big question is who is really to blame for it. And well, Douglas Luiz took a swing at it. Like he took a massive swing at it. He said a lot of things, and he blamed everybody, himself, but definitely others as well. He said some
Mhm.
interesting things where it's like at first he was bigging up himself, saying I was one of the best DMs in the Premier League, and how come a purchase like mine cannot play two consecutive games even when I'm fit. And I'm like, you have a point with that one. Like I was reading it and I was like, I get it. It's confusing. I agree. At the time, I was like, he's fit. Like, why is he not playing again? So I agree with all those things. And then he said, like, injuries, it's not just on me. I was like, what the hell happened behind closed doors? Like that was very interesting. I
Yeah.
was like, because we were all sitting here and we know his track record with injuries. It's clean. This is crazy, actually. So for him to say it's not just on me, I'm like, what happened, and why is the club not addressing it? Because I'm assuming they're not addressing it. Otherwise, we would know with leaks and stuff. So what the hell happened in that case? And then he also said, about um certain decisions and whatever. So it's a whole mix of things where it's like, when I read that, obviously the first thing was like the injuries part. I'm like, you're right. Like, what happened? But the main takeaway, I was sitting there, I was like, who signed you? Like, that was my main thing. I was like,
Yeah.
who signed you? Because I'm starting to believe right now, because people are like, oh, Mota signed him. I'm like, but if it's a Mota signing, then definitely he would have been playing more. Forget about, oh, he's not doing well. Colt Miners was stinking out the place and he was playing week in, week out. If you sign such a player, massive money, you let him play. If it's you guy, you give him more opportunities than he got, basically. And I was like, surely it's not, it's Mota who signed. Like, maybe he was okay with it, but he probably, like, he cannot have asked for him. And then I was like, well, maybe Giuntoli actually did the Plus Valenza thing with Barnechea and Junior. And I'm like, but that's crazy. The money involved is actually insane. The wages, all those things. So when I read that, I just scratched my head and was like, what a mess this is, basically. Because we have a player who is very open with it. I don't really have an issue with him saying it because he replied to a fan. Maybe, bigging up himself. Maybe that's the issue I have, because when you played, it wasn't all fantastic as well. So that maybe is a weird part. But when he was open about the injuries, and it's like, it's not just on me. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I can see that, and I can accept that you've been real with it. And now I'm just sitting here and I've a thousand questions where I'm like, what happened? Who signed you? And we will never know until he probably leaves the club, which is probably going to happen in the summer. And then we will know, but it's already too late. No matter what is coming out, it's just like juicy news, I guess, but it's too late. So I don't know. What do you think about all of this? His comments and, the, just in general, like, who signed off for bringing Douglas Luiz into the club?
Yeah. It definitely confuses everybody because you look at all the other players, like you said, like Colt Miners and the players that you could see that Moto's consistently playing even when they're not performing. And you wonder why Luis is not performing and why certain players keep coming onto the pitch, especially when they don't perform. I've said this in a bunch of my videos. They could be Cristiano Ronaldo in the practice field, but when you come onto the actual pitch, if you're not performing, you should not play. I don't care what you do in the practice. So I think I think it was more of a Giuntoli signing, and I also think Turam was originally more of a Giuntoli signing,
I agree.
and then I realized how well he can play and started to fit him in. Um, but moving more towards the Instagram post, I think sadly, I think he has a lot of valid points, like you said, but I don't think he has the evidence to sit there and say, "Why I play two consecutive games?" Well, when we put you in the game for the first half of the season, you were taking volleys that were hitting the corner flag when you were trying to shoot on the goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's reasons why he wasn't playing in the beginning, But I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been given more of a chance, because I do think he should have been given a little bit more time towards the end of Mota's tenure. And even now, I would like to see him come on as a sub or something like that. But he was, with the time he was given, he wasn't showing what he did at Villa. And I think that's why Mota really made that decision to take him off. And that's where I think his comment on Instagram lacks a little bit of, you know, validity, because he wasn't showing us much. Um,
No.
but I applaud him for, as a fan, as a fan trying to see the club do better. I applaud him for calling out the injuries. I applaud him for saying there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about, which is true for most clubs. And I'm not mad at him for responding to the fan, like you said, but it kind of shows that nobody has control of the
Yep.
players, which I mean that in a sense of, as a team, as a coach, you need to be very thorough with your players, and as when it comes to social media and what you say at press conferences and things like that. There is absolutely zero control over any of these players, because we've seen it in the past. We've seen Petty, and we've seen all these players posting this, posting that, which they have the complete right to do. I'm not saying that they can't, but when you represent a club, you just have to be a little bit more careful and diligent with what you post online. I mean, that could be said for everybody, but especially if you're somebody who has a lot of eyes on you. You know what I mean? So, I mean, he has valid points, but then again, he needs to back it up with playing. I need to see it from him. I need, and before he got injured, I was seeing a little bit of progress. I can't lie. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. If he wants to leave and we can break even, I think it's I think it's fine. I wouldn't be completely angry at it, but if he's willing to come back and try to prove
For
himself
himself.
a little bit more under a new coach, then I wouldn't be mad at it either.
I don't have an issue with it as well. If I'm being like, but I agree with you when you say it's clear that there's a lack of control at the club. That's what I've been preaching or trying to preach a lot of times on my news shows and stuff like that. And you know what it is? Even though it's interesting to hear, if things are good at the club, if you have a stable club, players do not come out. Players do not respond to fans. The only way they respond to fans if something very, like, how do you know, like, very nasty has been said, where it's like, okay, now a player needs to respond. But if things are good at the club, are okay with the club, they don't, like, players do not come out and talk about things that happen inside the club. So that's another proof that things are not good at the club. There's no real control, and I think everybody feels they can do whatever they want. And probably, the club will know that this has been said, and they probably will not act on it. That's the thing as well. Because otherwise, if the club would act on these things, they would have acted on the first one. It happened, and it's already happened. With social media posts and stuff like that. And then the next one knows I'm not doing this. So it's just another sign of a bad management in general. I'm gonna say it's a sign of a lot of poor decisions now coming back to haunt us. And again, the positive thing, because you always need to take something positive out of this, is that he's an ex Premier League player. He did well in the Premier League, so he probably holds some value, and you can recoup
Mhm.
it. But if this was a La Liga player, then you were stuck with it, and you were in a situation where you could do absolutely nothing with it, and you're in a situation where you have a player who is, well, unhappy at the club, who is viewed not good enough at the club, for the club, basically, and who's on a lot of money as well, so somehow, some way, we'll probably get away with the mistake. But it's still painful to witness, as a Juve fan, because I'm not even going back that long, even though it feels ages. When we were winning 9 in a row, these things didn't happen, because we had we had serious players. I think also serious personalities where like they will never allow. And if something happened, it would have, the day after or even on the day itself, they would probably would have been told, no, we're not doing this anymore. Nobody is doing this anymore. It's done. But right now, I mean, pff, even if Juntali steps down and it's like, no, 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 I don't think anyone can take this serious anymore this season. I think it's been all over the place. Whoever speaks up from management right now, it's like, really, now, like, the vibe is completely off, and we're just gonna need to deal with it, live with it, even though it's painful. It really is painful because it's just more distraction and so on. And I mean, the funny thing is that it popped up, but you made that comment like days ago, and it surfaced now. Because I looked it up and I was like, I never saw it before, and I went on Instagram because I was like, it's fake, like it's fake, I guess, and it's real. It's like a week ago almost that it happened, and nobody really, you know, mentioned it until now. So it's great, but he's not the only one. When we talk about signings and we talk about, well, who signed certain players. Colt Miners, I think, was a Malta player. I think Juntili signed off for it, but I think Malta would push for him, really push for him. um I think Kalulu was just an opportunity because they messed up other players they wanted, or opportunity, like a last, grasp of, I don't know, hope, whatever you want to call it. But like
Yeah,
even a player like Contessawa, for example, I mean, like that felt like it was Adeyemi, and it was this and that, and then it was Sancho, and then it's like, you know what, let's loan Contessawa. But I never felt that Mota was like, yeah, Conceição, That's how I always felt. And Tudor is definitely like,
yeah,
shit, Conceição. Now Yildiz is suspended. I think Tudor is feeling sick. He must be feeling sick because he knows he's going to need to play Conceição, and he absolutely does not like Conceição. Like, no chance he likes him, especially after that post he made. I think knowing how Tudor is, it stopped already there. Whatever respect he had for Conceição as a player that died, on that evening. Um, how do you manage that in the summer right now? Because nobody really knows who the coach is gonna be, but you have so many players that I don't like. I think even Juntili at this point is like, I don't really rate you, but there are also players two coaches didn't really rate. Like, how do you clean up this mess, basically? Because it's a massive mess. From players we do not own to players we own. How do you clean up it? Because we had a massive rebuild, but let's be honest. I think every single Juve fan is sitting here right now. It's like, we're gonna have another massive rebuild just by default because of the type of deals we've done. And I'm like,
yep,
how are you gonna navigate through that being gently, like, where the hell do you start in the summer?
yeah. Honestly, it's gonna be just like last season. Um, we came in with a whole new squad, and I think that's what's gonna happen again this summer. The only way I see Giuntoli staying is if, number one, this is Giuntoli staying or not. We need a experienced coach again. I get Tudor has experience in this position, and I thank Tudor for coming in and doing what he's doing. And if he makes top four, I'll gladly, you know, be willing to, talk to extend him and see who he wants to bring and who he doesn't want to bring. But Juntally, there's no way you can go and buy, for example, Osimhen or Tonali or any player for $80 million, and you don't know who the coach is going to be next season. There's absolutely no way to spend that amount of money and then you get a coach who doesn't like the player. So I think the priority for them should be looking at a coach, and then the coach needs to, talk to whoever the management is. But in my personal opinion, I don't really want Giuntoli dealing with any more of Juventus's money. I've seen enough damage that he's done, and granted, it's not all his fault, but there's just decisions that just made me question him. So I think first we need to figure out who the coach is going to be, and then we need to figure out who's really here for the rebuild and who's really here to play for Juventus. If anybody in the locker room is not here to play for this club, then you can gladly leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It could be anybody on the team. Nobody's safe. If you do not want to come and play for this club, then you can leave, and we will find players who want to prove themselves and want to play hard for the club. You know, and I think that's what it comes down to, and that's kind of my pet peeve with benching Conceição. Yeah, he has attitude stuff, but he was a hard player. You know, he gave a lot on the field, and those that's hard to come by today because times in football have changed. There's no more Del Pieros. There's no more, Ronaldos. There's no more of these players who have a passion for a club that strong. Less Ronaldo and more Messi,
yeah.
obviously, but I think it's going to boil down to who's the coach and who the manager, the direttore sportivo, the sporting director is, because I'm not so sure Giuntoli's spot is safe, and I would be
I think for
curious
this
as to
summer it is.
who. Yeah, for the summer, yes. I'm not sure for next season. I'd like to see who. I like to see his next steps, but it makes me a little nervous because he's made a radical decision rejecting Conte for Mota, and who's to say he's not going to do something the same again? But I think we just need a coach who doesn't take any BS from any of the players. Somebody like, I know it's over exaggerated, but Conte, or somebody who has dealt with egos, because some of the best players ever have had egos, have had attitude problems. But if you're a coach who knows how to manage that, you can get the best out of the player while not causing an internal explosion at your club. So I think it's going to boil down to that, and then figuring out who really wants to play for the club.
I mean, when it comes to certain players, like I do appreciate hard work, but you know what it is? I appreciate it more in a better team. That's it. Because if
Yep.
it's in a bad squad right now, then I view it as I'm grasping at straws here. I'm just asking for the bare minimum in a very bad situation. And that's my thing with certain players in the squad. When it's, you know what it is? When I heard Tudor talk about passion and stuff like and bring the Italian spirit to the club, the fighting spirit, I'm like, that's good, but we just all like we need like we are not gonna go back to winning ways if all these players start fighting. Like I wish it was that simple. It's not that simple. There's more to it. Am I to go an entire like you can do that in a one-off game in a final or something, but 38 games, it's not enough. Like you need absolutely more than that, and that's where it stops with me. That's I think when players like Paruin and Giaccherini played for us, I appreciate it more because they played in a good team. And again, that's not a knock on these players right now because they are playing in a bad team. But we appreciate those players more because when they came in, they knew who they were. They knew they were not as good as the guys they were replacing, but they did the job on the night and they moved on. They kept moving. That is we have a lot of these players right now starting week in, week out, and also labeled to be Juve level. That's where my issue is. I'm like, no, that's not how it should be working at this club, but that's how it's working at this club. You can accept it, or you can say no. I'm just saying no to it basically. But the summer is gonna be insane for Giuntoli. It's gonna be insane for Giuntoli. It starts with the coach,
Yep.
obviously, because whoever the next coach is gonna be, like, you need to go again because you sign players right now. The previous coach didn't even want, let alone the coach coming in. So it's
Yeah.
massive, and we cannot have a summer where we have so many flops again. When I read news about Premier League clubs interesting for Nico Gonzalez, I'm like, you need to take certain things serious, because you're changing coach again, I believe. Um, Whatever happened last year, you need to reevaluate anything last summer from Colt Miners to Douglas Luiz to like every single player needs to be reevaluated basically because it's a new thing. It's starting all over again. So you cannot just dismiss every single bit right now. Like even I know it sounds ridiculous by the way, but even a bit for Turan or Yildiz, when a new coach comes in, you need to sit back down and be like, this is what's on the table. This is the bits we have. These are type of players you want. These are possibilities, what are we going to do? You cannot start moving before the new coach comes in because that's just a bad thing to do already. Like look what we have right now, the mess, when you have so many
Yep.
players out of contract or almost out of contract on loan. I mean, whoever the coach is going to be, I hope they know already. I hope they know because it's going to be a crazy summer. It's going to be an insane summer. Like actually insane, which I absolutely dislike. A lot of things to talk about, but I dislike it. I prefer to have the summers we had in the past where we sell two players and sign two players or whatever. And we basically knew what was gonna happen. Well, one big time player is leaving, or this and this is gonna happen. We always knew what was gonna happen. Right now, it's just wait and see for something insane again. And I'm actually a bit tired of it, to be honest. Because it's not that we signed like we've been linked with players, so I'm like, I don't want to go into the summer talking about these type of players every single week. After what I've witnessed, I don't want to do it again. But that's it right now. Like that's the situation. We made awful signings. Maybe at the time nobody was like. Were you expecting like the players we signed? Were you expecting so many of them doing this poorly? Like because to be honest, I wasn't this poorly. No, no chance. Like no
No.
chance. This is this next
No,
level.
I don't. I I didn't. It's crazy. Who would expect Colt Miners to flop like he did, especially when he has Serie A experience. Douglas Luiz was a little less surprising because he's moving from the Prem to Serie A, so the league switch is what it is. But um, that just proves even more that there is a problem at the club. That's all it's proving, and we've said that for a few years now. I've been saying it like something's wrong. There's something that's not going well, and that's probably why there was a disconnect with Allegri and Giuntoli and all of those the guys there. But no, I wasn't expecting as big of a flop, and the club needs to take a step back and analyze what went wrong, what is currently going wrong, and they have to fix it, or else we're just gonna be in a cycle, and we're gonna end up like Manchester United or one of those. No knock on Manchester United, but they're in a similar position, but way worse. They've been going through this for years now,
Yep.
and they're in like 15th place. And it's because and they've been through 6 7 coaches and it's not working. So at one point you gotta point higher up, and you gotta point to the culture in the locker room.
Yeah. We will see. We will see how that will go in the summer. I think more and more things will come out if we. It's only 4 games left. Season is almost over. Thank God, it's almost over. The Club World Cup. It is what it is. That's just Club World Cup and chill. I guess. I'm not going to go in there stressing whatsoever, especially not with this squad. Like 100%, I'm not going to go stressing. Is just pick up the check as much as you can collect, and that's basically it. For us. So
Yep.
not stressing about, but it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. What's going to happen in the summer? But yeah, that's it, people. Let us know in the comments what do you think about these players. Also, uh, answer the question like who actually flopped and who do you think signed who? Because right now it's very very confusing. Anyways, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will speak to you in the next one. Ciao.